Secretary of State George Shultz arrived in Geneva today along with Soviet Foreign Minister Gromyko, both men ready for tomorrow's talks aimed at resuming nuclear arms control negotiations. Good evening, I'm John Palmer, and this is NBC Nightly News. For the first time in more than a year, the stage is set tonight for meetings between U.S. and Soviet negotiators on nuclear arms control. As diplomatic correspondent Marvin Kalb reports from Geneva, the purpose of the two-day session is to set the agenda for future negotiations.
Secretary of State Shultz, first to arrive, headed a top-heavy, star-studded cast. Specially designed, he said, to show the president's serious approach to these talks. But Shultz stressed he's come with no illusions, but ready to give it the college try.
I look forward to discussing the important arms control issues with Mr. Gromyko, and I hope our meetings will set our countries on a path toward new negotiations and equitable and verifiable agreements.
The veteran Soviet Foreign Minister Andrei Gromyko flew into Geneva several hours later. Gromyko put prime importance on blocking the U.S. space defense program called Star Wars. And for maximum effect, Gromyko spoke in English.
The Soviet Union is in favor of working out basic guidelines to orient the negotiations towards reaching mutually acceptable accords, which would prevent an arms race in outer space.
Star Wars. Even in this Buck Rogers animation, it is an awesome concept, a new way of looking at nuclear security. The idea is to build up non-nuclear defensive weapons, the highest form of technology, to shoot down approaching enemy warheads, the defense overwhelming the offense. The exact opposite approach to the one both superpowers have relied on for the past 25 years. The old approach relied on a balance of offensive nuclear weapons. The better the balance, the better the security. That was the idea, and it is still the preferred strategy for the Soviet Union. So, on the surface, both sides get ready for tomorrow's opening round of talks with different positions on Star Wars. Nothing new in that. The key will be finessing these obvious differences while accenting their expressed interest in resuming serious negotiations. And that is no easy task. Marvin Kalb, NBC News, Geneva.
The front pages of all Soviet newspapers today carried a warning by Soviet President Chernenko that deployment of U.S. space weapons would be an irreversible step. More on the Soviet view of the Geneva talks from correspondent Steve Mallory in Moscow.
Today's Communist Party newspaper Pravda reported Soviet leader Konstantin Chernenko's first public comments about the talks. Chernenko called on the United States to adopt Soviet arms control proposals, saying the Soviet Union is ready for urgent and effective measures to curb the arms race. The Soviet Union attaches much importance to reaching an agreement on the entire range of questions embracing both the non-militarization of space and nuclear arms. Soviet commentators have warned that the success of the talks requires a sensible, realistic approach from the United States.
Peace-loving nations have the right to expect that the American side would take a constructive and realistic position and would join the Soviet Union in the search for effective agreements.
Soviets we spoke with often echoed their government's view and generally welcomed the talks. A gun is more expensive than bread, this man said. It's better to build a tractor than a tank. Soviets also expressed their concern about the militarization of space.
It's just terrible, that Star Wars program. Well, I'm really afraid of that.
Soviet media regularly play on the Star Wars theme, saying that deployment of weapons in space threatens future talks. There's a belief here that the Geneva talks will have some positive results, and that those results will set the tone for Soviet-American relations in the Reagan administration's second term. Steve Mallory, NBC News, Moscow.
Despite Soviet objections to the administration's Star Wars proposal, President Reagan has made it clear he will not trade away Star Wars technology in negotiations with the Soviet Union. And as State Department correspondent Robin Lloyd reports, the administration is planning a public relations campaign to win support for the program here at home.
Whatever the outcome in Geneva, when Secretary of State Shultz returns to Washington on Wednesday, administration officials say President Reagan intends to launch a major campaign to sell his vision of space defense to the American people.
This White House pamphlet, recently released, is just the beginning of a public relations blitz which will include high-level testimony before Congress, major speeches by key administration officials, and perhaps radio and television addresses to the nation by the President. In the booklet, President Reagan says, quote, "We must seek another means of deterring war. It is both militarily and morally necessary." That concept concerns the Kremlin, high-tech space weaponry that the Soviets believe could change the strategic balance. But there are a growing number of skeptics and critics of Star Wars, among them a strong ally of the President on defense matters, retired General Brent Scowcroft.
And to imagine a system of the complexity that this would be, that has to work so greatly, so perfectly to accomplish the shield job, one has to be skeptical just based on the nature of man.
Still, President Reagan has strong allies, chief among them Secretary of Defense Weinberger and former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, who said today on Face the Nation that Star Wars should not be bargained away for the sake of arms control.
All of this tough talk from the administration on Star Wars could just be a tactic to improve the U.S. negotiating posture with the Soviets. But if it's not, many arms control experts say eventually President Reagan will have to choose between arms control and Star Wars, and many fear that he will choose the latter. Robin Lloyd, NBC News, the State Department.
Later in this news program, controversy tonight surrounds the cancellation of Israel's airlift of Ethiopian Jews. In this country, John Zaccaro, husband of former vice presidential candidate Geraldine Ferraro, faces another day in court. And in Italy, the first real snowfall in 14 years has turned the 7 hills of Rome into ski slopes.
Incredible. In laboratory tests, a liquid antacid that neutralizes acid in less than 10 seconds. Meet Ryapan Plus, sodium-free. In laboratory tests, it neutralizes acid in less than 10 seconds. 10 seconds. And it's sodium-free. No wonder it's doctor recommended. Ryapan Plus. We make a science of fast relief. Ryapan Plus Liquid. Tablet roll pack also available.
You know when Dad got his first Oldsmobile? When? 38 years ago. That's when they invented the wheel.
Wise guys. We love our new Olds Delta 88. It's got a huge trunk and so much room and luxury we can ride all day without ever feeling cramped. Yep, I keep saying it. The Delta 88 is the family car that didn't forget the family.
There is a special feel in an Oldsmobile.
When IBM personal computer owners look for good software, where can they turn? To IBM for programs that help you keep up with modern times. Business programs, entertainment, productivity, education, and more. The variety you want with the quality you expect in the growing library of IBM personal computer software. A well-balanced selection at a store near you.
An airlift that has rescued 7,000 Jews from possible starvation in Ethiopia is suspended, at least for now. Bob Kerr has more on that operation and the controversy it has generated.
Ethiopian Jews prayed this evening at the Wailing Wall, prayed for the resumption of the airlift which was to bring more of them to Israel. These children were among the last to arrive, before details of the secret airlift became public, and before the Belgian airline involved quit. But NBC News has learned that by the time Israel's cabinet met today, the government had received offers from other airlines in Europe and the United States willing to help complete the airlift. An immigration agency spokesman is hopeful.
Today there is no flights, and as far as we know, tomorrow there is no flight. What will be Tuesday, Wednesday, we don't know yet.
Today, some Ethiopian Jews were angry with the press for telling their story, but more said Israeli officials had made a mistake by disclosing it. Today, with cameras clicking and the press invited on an official tour, it appeared as though the Jewish Immigration Agency had decided on publicity as the new strategy.
At this point, we think that the only way to arouse
conscious of the world is by the world seeing what's happening and hearing the people here.
Bringing in and caring for the new Israelis will cost about $350 million, according to government estimates. The Reagan administration has contributed several million and pledged more. Israel has asked American rabbis to make special pleas.
Members of our congregation have contributed $42,600 to this effort.
At another synagogue, this one in Manhattan, $250,000 has been raised.
40 years ago, during the Holocaust, we didn't have an opportunity to save European Jews. And if we did, we may have missed the boat. We don't want to miss it this time.
Right now, however, with the countries involved sniping at one another and the airlift suspended, there is only hope that what's left of this opportunity hasn't gone away. Bob Kerr, NBC News in Tel Aviv.
Senator Edward Kennedy is on a week-long trip to South Africa on what he calls one of the most distressing visits he has ever made. As Martin Fletcher reports tonight, Kennedy is seeing apartheid in action.
Bishop Desmond Tutu wanted Senator Edward Kennedy to see for himself the desperate position of the blacks in South Africa. But others thought Kennedy's visit was just a publicity stunt and shouted at him to go home. Despite the opposition of many blacks to his visit, Kennedy went straight to Soweto, a blacks-only town of 1.5 million. They provide South Africa's biggest town, Johannesburg, with cheap black labor. Maria Tau's family of 8 lived in a house of 4 small rooms. She complains the wind and rain come through the roof, that her children don't get a decent education or decent jobs. Her welcome for Kennedy, though, was a warm one. Kennedy may think he's given Mrs. Tau some hope. Instead, she's afraid other blacks will attack her for hosting Kennedy in her home.
It's a pity I won't see you tomorrow, but before tonight, I'm sure they shall have come and asked me questions. It's a pity by then you won't be there. I'm going to be harassed. Yeah.
Are you frightened by this?
Yes, definitely.
Kennedy then toured a housing complex for black workers and came face to face with one of the worst abuses of South Africa's apartheid system, the separation of men from their families. The men can stay here, but their wives and children cannot. They don't have permits. A.B. Mafekeni is 55 years old.
I have been living here for the last 11 years. I often see my family once a year.
Once a year?
Only once a year.
The late Bobby Kennedy came to Soweto nearly 20 years ago and promised to try and change things. Nothing changed then, and the people we spoke to here today don't expect Teddy Kennedy to do any better. Martin Fletcher, NBC News, Soweto, South Africa.
In other news tonight, the man President Jose Napoleon Duarte named to head an investigation into government corruption in El Salvador was assassinated today. Pedro Rene Yanez was shot and killed by a supporter of the ultra-right Arena Party of Roberto D'Aubuisson. The gunman killed 4 bystanders and wounded 2 bodyguards before the guards killed him. And Britain's Princess Margaret continues to undergo tests in a London hospital. So far, there's no word on what those tests are for, but the princess is known to be a heavy smoker, and the hospital specializes in diseases of the heart and lungs.
We asked minor arthritis pain sufferers why they depend on Bengay.
It takes away the pain. The warmth takes away the pain.
I know it's working because of the warmth and the soothing feeling that I get.
The Bengay gives a lot of relief, and it lasts for hours.
This is my pal. I go to sleep with him every night, kid. Until there is a cure found for arthritis, I will keep right on using the Bengay.
For arthritis pain, feel better with Bengay. You can feel it working.
The warmth takes away the pain.
Cheese, glorious cheese. So sumptuous and luscious. Cheese, marvelous cheese. Makes everything scrumptious. What else is so versatile? Real cheese is always a hit. It's cheese, marvelous cheese, versatile cheese, glorious cheese.
Make your meal sing with real cheese.
When was the last time you took a look? When was the last time you cooked your old friend cream of wheat? Remember the mornings you woke up to a light, smooth taste that let the flavor shine through. It's as good as you remember cream of wheat. Traditional or instant mix and eat cream of wheat cereal and lots of delicious flavors. It's as good as you remember cream of wheat. Nabisco.
John Zaccaro, the husband of former Democratic vice presidential candidate Geraldine Ferraro, will face charges and make a plea in court tomorrow after a long investigation of his financial dealings. James Polk has more on the indictment.
John Zaccaro will walk into a New York courtroom tomorrow morning to enter a plea on a misdemeanor charge that will end the long investigation of his tangled finances. NBC News has confirmed Zaccaro has been named in an indictment returned in secret by a Manhattan grand jury in the past few days. The charge is described by Zaccaro's lawyer as a minor technical violation, which involves 5 high-rise apartment buildings in this Queens neighborhood. One of Zaccaro's real estate clients had an option to buy the apartment complex in 1983. But the deal fell through when someone in Zaccaro's office forged the sale papers used for a loan application to try to borrow $3.5 million more than the sale price. Sources would not comment on the exact nature of the indictment against Zaccaro, but they say under an agreement with prosecutors, Zaccaro is expected to plead guilty to a misdemeanor charge and to pay a fine of $1,000 or less.
We're going to issue a statement tomorrow. Both my husband and I will be issuing a statement tomorrow.
Geraldine Ferraro came to the door of the Zaccaro home today to say her husband would have no comment until after his court appearance. The investigation of Zaccaro's finances was begun by the Manhattan District Attorney last fall during Ferraro's campaign, but prosecutors delayed the case until after the election was over. A second and more serious part of the investigation had involved apparent kickbacks paid to get another loan to buy this Manhattan apartment building, a loan made illegally by the Port Authority Credit Union. Zaccaro's lawyers acknowledged that this credit union board member was given a $25,000 payment out of the loan money. But Zaccaro has denied any involvement in that, and sources say prosecutors have cleared him in the kickback deal. A lawyer said he has been exonerated of everything on that. With the deal for tomorrow's guilty plea and a small fine, Zaccaro and the Manhattan prosecutors can close the case without a trial to avoid more controversy and more political embarrassment for Ferraro. James Polk, NBC News, Washington.
Every year, about 1 million Americans are at home when a burglar barges in. A third are victims of beatings, rapes, and other acts of violence. And in many cases, the intruder is not a stranger. The Justice Department revealed those chilling figures today. Investigators say that in 7 million burglaries which it looked into, the criminal was a relative or an acquaintance in 42% of the incidents. Socialite Klaus von Bülow said today that he expects to be cleared when he's tried for a second time on charges of trying to murder his wife, Sunny, with injections of insulin. The heiress remains in a coma in a New York hospital. Jennifer McLogan has a report.
The state of Rhode Island says its evidence will convict Klaus von Bülow a second time.
I am convinced that there is sufficient probative evidence which, if believed by a jury, would result in conviction.
The Danish-born financier was convicted of 2 counts of attempted murder in 1982, but 2 years later the convictions were overturned by the state Supreme Court, which ruled key evidence was obtained illegally. The retrial is scheduled to begin in April.
It will be a completely different case. They have less evidence because much of it was excluded by the Supreme Court, and we have more evidence because much of what was excluded last time was ordered in by the Supreme Court. So it's a completely new ballgame.
Defense attorney Alan Dershowitz says crucial new evidence was disclosed during a recent court hearing, that notes taken by this private investigator working for von Bülow's stepchildren were purposefully withheld during the first trial. Notes he says that would have exonerated von Bülow. The defense team says it plans to introduce new medical evidence, as well as testimony from the ex-wife of Johnny Carson, Joanna, and the late author Truman Capote, who was a close friend of Mrs. von Bülow. During an interview last April, von Bülow said he is depending on those close to him.
I would never have been able to face all this without the loyalty of my friends.
The defense maintains von Bülow's stepchildren are pressing for his conviction to exclude him from their mother's will, estimated to be worth more than $30 million. The prosecution contends Von Bulow tried to kill his wife for her money and to be free to marry his then-lover, Alexandra Isles.
Yes, I did.
From his wife's Fifth Avenue apartment, Von Bulow said privately today that he is looking forward to a new trial so that he can be completely exonerated. Jennifer McLogan, NBC News, New York.
Medical investigators now suspect that the same virus which causes infectious mononucleosis is responsible for a flu-like illness that can linger for years. The malady is marked by fatigue, fever, and swollen glands and can't be detected by routine medical tests. Reports in the January issue of the Annals of Internal Medicine say the apparent villain is the Epstein-Barr virus. There have been more than 24 explosions at abortion clinics across the United States in the past year. Tomorrow in Florida, 4 young people go to court charged with the bombing of 3 abortion clinics in Pensacola. Dan Molina has more.
We have some young people right now that are facing some very serious matters. But we're going to love them, and we're going to support them and strengthen them in every way that we can.
Kay Wiggins is one of 4 young people charged in the bombing of 3 Pensacola abortion clinics early Christmas morning. Today, she tearfully listened while Reverend Lindau Ballinger condemned the bombings.
We hold steady and hold fast to our contention that abortion is wrong. But I do not condone violent acts to promote causes. We do not believe in that. We don't teach that here. We don't promote that, not at all.
Wiggins now says she agrees with the pastor.
Matt, Jimmy, Kathy, we all feel we were wrong.
Investigators say that the pipe bombs used on the clinics were extremely well constructed. At one point, investigators thought that the 4 Pensacola defendants may have been part of a national underground organization, but all involved deny that.
I do not identify with terrorists. We are not terrorists.
Matt Goldsby is Kay Wiggins' fiancé. He and co-defendant James Simmons freely admit their guilt. They say they aren't necessarily sorry for what they did, since that kept the issue of abortion in the public eye.
If we can, by some grace of God, manage to have some legislation passed through causing abortion to be illegal, then I couldn't say I could be sorry for it.
Anti-abortionists in this area have kept up a steady pace of demonstrations, and some are contributing to help pay the legal fees of the 4 defendants. Leaders of the demonstrators will not say that they condone the bombings, but they do say that the bombings served a purpose.
I don't approve of what they did, but it's done something that we've not been able to do at Stop the Killing.
Oh, hear the voice of the Lord. For the Lord does see the disturbance in your spirit. He does see the turmoil in your mind.
Kay Wiggins and the other 3 defendants face a hearing tomorrow on the bombing charges.
I'm scared. God does not condone violence. It says in the Bible, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord.
Dan Molina, NBC News, Pensacola, Florida.
And then there is this item tonight. President Reagan has complained from time to time that reporters misinterpret his words and distort his views. So tomorrow, the White House launches its own news service to distribute unedited presidential speeches and announcements. The news service hopes to appeal to small newspapers and radio stations which don't have White House correspondents.
Me really worry about denture loose spots? Why? I use new Fixodent.
Fixodent, and forget it.
Denture wearers can't eat everything, but Fixodent has a hold that really makes a difference.
Fixodent, and forget it. Fixodent helps fix loose spots, and now it's improved. It works even better to hold stronger and longer with less ooze.
I'm worried about these. Could I do this?
Use new improved Fixodent, and forget it.
You've been traded, Rolaids. For acid and gas, your performance is not up to tempo.
Sorry, but you're fired, Malox. You don't work hard enough. I'm switching to Tempo.
Our relationship is over, Tums. I found someone better. Tempo.
For better relief from acid and gas, people everywhere are switching to Tempo. Its soft form holds 75% more acid-relieving medicine than Rolaids. And soft Tempo dissolves fast. Switch to better relief. Switch to soft Tempo.
I'm glad I found you.
Here's my old furniture polish, Pledge. Here's my new, Behold. Here's why. I had problems cleaning greasy marks like these crayons. I'll spray Pledge here, Behold here. Behold, clean the mark better. Frankly, both are fine for shining, cleaning, protecting. But why not use the one that cleans greasy marks better? Behold costs less, too. Amazing.
Behold, a lot of cleaning for less money.
I'm sold on Behold.
Rome has had its first real snowfall in 14 years, and Rick Davis reports that tourists are throwing snowballs instead of coins into the famed Trevi Fountain.
To say that Rome has been under siege as often as she has been under snow might be a slight historical exaggeration. But this scene has not been played on her streets very often. For many of the young, the white stuff was a new thing, and all over Rome, this was their day. The sculptured figures of the city looked down with cold stone eyes at a new kind of warfare on the streets. And Romans have not forgotten that fine art of sculpture, done with that subtle Italian touch. It has been 14 years since the streets were ski slopes. And a rather well-known skier gave that his blessing. The view of Pope John Paul was a little obscure this day, and there are some rather unusual figures in St. Peter's Square to hear his Sunday words on this rather unusual day. But while the many played, there are worries. The snow means agriculture in Italy will lose millions of dollars. Up north in Switzerland, the cold wave covering Europe brought an eerie beauty to Lake Neuchâtel. The mist was caused by cold air over the warmer lake waters. This is London. It was the heaviest snowfall for 3 years. Here, the people seem to have forgotten the gift for sculpture. A lot of people had a very good time in the snow. In fact, some went head over heels for it. And some did not enjoy this day at all. And the pelicans in the park? Well, they just seemed a little confused by this day. Rick Davis, NBC News, London.
And that's the news for this Sunday evening. I'm John Palmer. For coverage of the Geneva Arms Control talks, join us tomorrow morning on Today and later on NBC Nightly News. And for all of us at NBC News, thank you and good evening.
Hey, that cereal looks delicious.
It's new.
Pineapple, banana, and coconut.
Very tropical.
It's called Fruit and...
Now another post-fruit and fiber cereal, Tropical Fruit. Tastes so good you forget the fiber. High fiber flakes mixed with sunny dried pineapple, crunchy banana chips, and tender coconut. So all you remember is fruit.
And, New fruit and...
New fruit and fiber with Tropical Fruit. It tastes so good you forget the fiber.
One ground decaffeinated coffee tastes so smooth and rich. So incredibly smooth and rich, it's grown to be the biggest seller in the country. But now Brim is offering you a big choice, because now there's new Brim Dark Roast with a taste that's dark, hearty, and robust. So now when you fill your cup to the rim, you have a big decision. Regular roast or new dark roast.
I'm Bryant Gumbel. In September, I reported from Moscow when the Soviets began to talk arms control again. Now I'll follow that story to Geneva for the Schultz-Gromyko Summit tomorrow on Today.
I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV. And when many adults get a cough, they play doctor at home. They treat their cough with the same medicine they originally bought for their children. They need one of the adult formulas from Vicks for the coughs adults get with the strength adults need. Formula 44 for coughs, 44D for coughs with congestion, and now Formula 44M for coughs with congestion and a raw, irritated throat. The adult formulas. You can't buy anything more effective.
The adult formulas from Vicks, of course.
Tonight on Knight Rider, Michael and Kit go up against an automotive assassin. But when he's caught without Kit, it could mean curtains. An all-new Knight Rider. Then an NBC movie premiere. In a savage world gone mad, one man stands alone. Mel Gibson is the road warrior tonight.